The Roman army is considered the world's most dangerous power. We advance with unwavering discipline, renowned for our accuracy and power. However, it's essential to understand what really occurs when we enter the battlefield. Imagine the shout of warriors battling for survival, the thunder of our feet shaking the ground, and the sound of iron colliding with iron. Beneath these gleaming shields and lofty banners exists something far more dreadful, a world of disorder, violence, and demise. Today, I will demonstrate what it means to be among the ranks of Rome, the way we train, the manner we fight, and how we survive in a system founded on severe discipline and relentless destruction. If you want to understand what we face, you have to see the Roman army through my eyes. We serve as the protectors of an empire that spans from the icy fogs of Britannia to the deserts of Africa. Rome's victories aren't by chance. They are built on strict discipline, relentless training, and leaders who will push us to our limits rather than allow us to falter in formation. It is said that our forces are unstoppable, yet underneath the gleam of our armor lie sweat, anxiety, and the fear of humiliation. A single error can jeopardize everyone. Our numbers are huge, tens of thousands, backed by scouts, engineers, supply vehicles, and even international allies. But when the horns blow, it is individuals like me who stand firm, shield to shield, close enough to feel the enemy's breath, close enough to die. We do not fight for glory, but because Rome demands it. Each day, I bear the burden of my family's hopes and the fear of disappointing them. You may have heard different stories about Roman battles, but today I will tell you what actually happened in the Battle of Cannae, the battle where Rome suffered, and I was right in the middle of it. The march to war. Rome conquers the world, but for a soldier, the burdens of the world are heavy. Long before the sun had graced the sky, I was rising to the harsh shouts of the centurions, pricking my eyes awake, and donning armor that felt as if it was going to crush me with each mile racked up. My gladius, sharp and hungry for blood, was strapped on along with my pilum to shatter the enemy's shields, and my scutum was used as a shield to protect my life. That was just the basics. In addition to that, we had to carry utensils for trench digging, a vessel to boil water in, some grains and old bread, a cloak for the rain, and even stakes to build our ramparts. Every single one of these meant an additional burden, which was already straining my body. The columns continued to stretch, and the boots pounded the ground in perfect rhythm. 20 miles a day, sometimes more, through dust or pouring rain. There was no grace left for you if you fell behind. The centurion's staff was striking you back before a curse could breathe from your lips. This life granted not an ounce of sympathy. My feet felt hot within their sandals. My tongue felt dry and dusty like I had just swallowed a mud pie. However, the worst part was the fear. Fear of what lay ahead. Fear of never being seen again. Fear of humiliation. Rome punished cowards harder than any enemy could. Once night approached, there was no rest. We set up camps like clockwork, digging ditches, setting and raising walls, hammering stakes in. A metaphorical circle and the endlessness of life were wearing down. Those camps became so familiar to me that on some nights when I was asleep, I could almost build them in my dreams. Inside those walls, I tried to catch a moment of peace, eating a handful of hard bread and sipping on water. Around the fires, we shared tales, lied about our bravery, and foolishly chose to disregard the impending doom that lingered. As relentless as life is, so is time, and tomorrow eventually arrived. The officers were always stationed by the commander's tent for some reason, figuring out the next move and sending out scouts to locate the enemy. During this time, there was nothing else for us to do but patiently wait, polishing our swords and shields, all while fighting the anxiety bubbling in our stomachs. With every step, we came closer to the site of countless deaths. All the while, every step was tightening the chains of trust we were beginning to have in the soldier beside us. He could very well be the only reason we made it home again. Thus began the summons from Rome, compelling us to fight. And off we went, marching mile after mile until sunset, only halting at the sound of horns. Then we slept like the dead until the next order. Preparation for battle. We never slept without walls around us. They were a customary thing across Rome. No matter how far we marched or how tired our legs felt, the camp had to rise before nightfall. Blisters formed on my hands from digging trenches, and my arms went numb from pounding stakes. Each soldier gave it his all. The camp now rose as a square and orderly fortress, which was a sight to behold. I knew every part of its pattern by heart. The tents lined up straight, the commander's quarters at the center, the standard guarded like the soul of the legion. No enemy would catch us sleeping. Quietly patrolling with the aid of torchlight, our centurions inspected every edge of our swords, rims of shields, and even the straps of the armor worn. Once the battle commenced, each and every one of us would perish due to one weak link. Such carelessness would be met with brutal punishment. Following the inspections, additional drills occurred. We practiced until our legs shook, securing shields in the testudo and moving forward and backward on command. We had rehearsed so often that I could almost do it while asleep. That was the objective. In combat, there's no time to think, only to follow orders and to survive. The aroma of cooking fires permeated the air during the night. Our food was nothing to brag about. Grain porridge, hard bread, a small piece of meat if we were fortunate. However, it served as motivation for the following day, and that was enough. Before I tried to sleep, I offered my prayers. Mars, watch me. Spirits of the home, protect me. I placed a charm around my neck, a present from home, wishing it could deflect a weapon. Each one of us had something to hold on to, even if we acted like we didn't. It was always difficult to get rest. The night prior to the battle felt like the longest night ever. You would lie on your cot, hearing the hushed voices of the men nearby, the muffled cries of someone attempting to stay composed. You questioned whether you would stumble tomorrow, if your blood would soak into an unknown field distant from home. At dawn, the horn would be blown, and all that dread would vanish. Nobody wished to embarrass the Legion. We would stand firm, or we would perish in the attempt. That was the vow we adhered to. And during those bleak times, every individual understood the price it would demand: the formation and deployment. With the first light, the horns blared through the camp, summoning us to our positions. My heart pounded in my chest, yet I acted on reflex, fastening my armor, clutching my shield, and aligning with my squad. We walked quietly through the gates, setting foot on the battlefield. The sun emerged behind us, shining on helmets and spear tips. In that light, the Legion appeared invincible. I was positioned in the front line among the hastati, the youngest and most vigorous of the group. Behind us stood the principes, veterans with more hardened gazes and steadier grips, and at the rear, the triarii, the ultimate line of defense if all else failed. We referred to them as the final hope, since if they advanced, the battle was on the edge of disaster. Our maniples secured themselves in position, lines upon lines, standards firmly rooted in the ground. Every standard represented more than just a banner. It symbolized a commitment, the essence of our legion. I would have perished before allowing mine to drop. On our sides, the cavalry stood by, drawn from Rome's wealthier citizens, their shining helmets sparkling. Behind them, the auxiliaries were ready, allies of Rome with lighter equipment set to protect us and harass the enemy. As the ranks tightened, an odd silence descended. The clash of metal, the shout of orders. Everything appeared to diminish. For a moment, there was only silence and the thumping of blood in my ears. Centurions advanced through our ranks, their eyes keen as predatory birds. They verified shield placements and urged us to maintain formation regardless of circumstances. Next to me, a companion whispered a prayer quietly. I had no reason to blame him. In the moments leading up to the initial confrontation, I experienced fear like a cold dagger in my stomach. I clenched the scutum harder until my knuckles turned pale. In front of us, the enemy advanced, their standards waving, arms gleaming. Then the signal arrived. Shields activated, spears prepared. We moved ahead, one step at a time, boots pounding together like a battle drum. This was what we had prepared for many years. There was no space for uncertainty, no moment to waver. I exhaled gently, calming my anxiety. I understood that the upcoming moments would determine whether I would survive or perish. As the distance diminished, I could see their eyes, fierce and filled with anger. Yet I placed my confidence in my brothers beside me. I had faith in the drill, and I had faith in the metal in my hand. Rome had prepared me for this, and today I would show it. The first clash. As we approached, the atmosphere turned deadly. Arrows, rocks, javelins. A storm of projectiles descended upon us, clattering against our shields like raindrops. My heartbeat pounded in my ears as I awaited the signal. Next, the command was issued. The aftermath. When the horns finally called the retreat, I could hardly believe that I was still alive. My arms ached, my legs seemed chiseled from rock, and my ears buzzed with the sound of metal that still resonated in my mind. We retraced our steps through the debris of the field, shields damaged, blades chipped and blunt. The earth was dense with corpses, a mix of ours and theirs, and the flies had started to gather. The smell of blood and death lingered in my nose, pungent and nauseating. No triumph has ever seemed pure. We maintained our position, pushed the adversary away, and broke them. But looking around at the fallen, it was hard to feel victory. These were men, like us, resting in the dirt with lifeless eyes. I found one of my brothers leaning against a shield, inhaling with ragged breaths. His side was ripped open, and I could do nothing but hold his hand until the light faded from him. That was a battle. You battled like a machine, yet you perished as a human. After securing the area, we regrouped, counted the survivors, and collected the injured. Our engineers started fixing the camp walls and excavating new ditches. There was no break, no time to grieve. Rome never granted us that privilege. As the sun went down, we burned the fallen enemy and buried our comrades with whatever honors we could provide. I stood watch that night on the rampart, gazing into the darkness, attempting to soothe the pounding of my heart. My hands continued to shake, recalling the destruction, the wails, the faces I had cut down. Sleep came like a curse. Whenever I shut my eyes, I visualized the line break, sensed a blade passing my defense, listened to a friend's last breath. Yet Rome did not care about my nightmares. The next day would bring fresh orders, another march, and another battle. We convinced ourselves it was necessary, that the Republic demanded our sacrifice. And perhaps it was right. Perhaps Rome could not survive without individuals like me, ready to bleed, kill, and sacrifice for its eagle banners to soar unopposed. I tried to cling to that thought while I cleaned the dried blood from my sword and sharpened the blade for the next day. Since tomorrow would arrive, and I would need to enter that battlefield once more. That was the cost of being a Roman warrior, and I was left with no option but to pay for it. That was my story, the reality behind the gleaming shields and the emblems of Rome. We marched, we battled, and many of us perished so the Republic could survive. Remember us not as heroes, but as warriors who stood firm when the world turned against us. I moved ahead with the group, retracting my arm and launching the pilum with all my strength. It flew from my hand in a flash, whistling through the air before slamming into an enemy shield. The initial barrage shattered their front lines, dismantling their barrier just as we had practiced. There was no time to celebrate. With a shout, we unsheathed our gladi and moved forward. I secured my scutum firmly against my body, shoulders pushed against the men beside me. We formed a solid barrier, advancing as one unit. The clash was sudden and deafening. Shields collided, swords stabbed through gaps. There was no room to swing, only to jab, fast and fierce. I could hardly see anything, only the shimmer of metal, the shine of eyes filled with fear or anger. Our centurions shouted commands, horns sounded signals amid the chaos, but most of us could only concentrate on survival. Hit, defend, advance, hit once more. There was no thinking, just instinct and routine. The enemy attacked fiercely, attempting to break through our defense with sheer aggression. I sensed their strikes pounding on my shield and listened to their battle shouts colliding with ours. For a moment, I considered that we could fall apart, but then I recalled the drills, recalled the importance of trusting the formation. We yielded gradually, then counterattacked, remaining firm against the surge. Surrounding me was a haze of cries and metal. The crowd was overwhelming, and the smell of sweat and blood felt heavy in my throat. My arm ached from hitting repeatedly, but I had no other option. The men behind me relied on me to maintain the line. The second and third ranks stayed together, ready to fill the gaps. If I were to fall, another would take my role before I even hit the ground. There was no backing down, no fleeing. Rome had shown us that it was preferable to perish in battle than to exist in shame. The battle seemed infinite, as if time had frozen within that throng of people. Dust suffocated the atmosphere. I could taste metal on my tongue. My only option was to struggle and wish the line would stay intact. And in some way, it happened. We had prepared for this. We had sacrificed for this. And within that battleground, the discipline of Rome remained firm, even when the world around us seemed ready to crumble. The turning point. I sensed the line breaking. We had pushed so deep into the enemy lines that the formation started to distort and bend around us. Men were tumbling, stumbling over bodies, shields losing their grip. What seemed like flawless progress now transformed into disorder. Initially, we believed we were succeeding. The enemy's position was faltering. We advanced eagerly, yearning for the win, convinced that victory was near. After that, everything was different. The enemy sides converged, their cavalry charged into our rear, and the ambush was completed. Out of nowhere, we found ourselves surrounded. The enemy closed in from all directions. My shield pressed hard against my chest, bodies jammed so closely I couldn't raise my sword. It felt as if I would suffocate. Panic erupted immediately. Men shouted, some attempted to break free, while others stood still, anticipating their demise. There was no place to flee. I could hear our centurions yelling, urging us to maintain formation, but the crowd was overwhelming. We were unable to move, unable to breathe. I sensed men perishing beside me, crushed and suffocated before a sword even touched them. Our cavalry had gone, shattered and dispersed, while the enemy cavalry charged at us from the rear. I attempted to twist, to resist, but the pressure was overpowering. I could hardly spot the enemy, merely glimpses of their weapons amidst the chaos and the haze. Our standards fell. I spotted an eagle, concealed beneath the corpses of the warriors who had pledged to protect it. At that instant, all the training, all the strictness appeared to vanish. We were confined, killed like caged beasts. I attempted to remain composed, recalling my training: thrust, block, advance. However, there was no room for any of that. I heard men pleading the gods for assistance, others crying, and some still shouting in furious anger. The enemy circled us repeatedly, attacking from the outer edges inward. I felt blood splash onto my face, warm and sticky, and realized I had no idea if it was mine. They killed us systematically, step by step. We were merely targets, packed so closely that we couldn't even protect ourselves. All glory had vanished, leaving chaos and despair. A few of us succeeded in escaping, battling fiercely through the enemy's circle. I was among the fortunate ones. I still have no idea how I escaped, just that I kept running until my legs collapsed. Rome would survive this day, yet we, the soldiers of that line, were finished. Cannae would linger in the mind of every survivor until his final day.